The Tropics, Segment 1. The overlook above Pixie territory stayed quiet as I adjusted the cloak at my shoulders. The corridor below drifted in steady patterns of light, and the rhythm of the floor felt complete. Then, just beyond the edge of the platform, something new caught my attention. A staircase curved downward behind a wall of thick root, almost hidden in shadow. A small wooden sign hung beside the first step. In simple carved letters, it read, "The Tropics." I stood there for a moment, looking from the corridor I had just mastered to the new descent waiting below. This dungeon never repeated itself. Every layer felt like a different world folded beneath the last. I stepped towards the stairs. The wood beneath my boots felt warmer than the spiral above, smooth and polished by time. Soft green light filtered upward from somewhere below, carrying a scent I hadn't encountered yet. It smelled like salt and sun-warmed leaves. Halfway down, a quiet notification shimmered at the edge of my vision. "You are leaving floor 5 perimeter, entering floor 6. Estimated monster difficulty, 4 to 6. The air grew humid as I continued. Roots thinned along the walls, replaced by smooth stone veined with pale turquoise quartz. The glow shifted from amber to sea green. The staircase ended abruptly at an open hillside. I stepped forward and stopped. Blue sky stretched overhead. Not painted stone, not cavern ceiling, sky. Clouds moved in slow arcs above a bright horizon, and the sound of distant surf rolled steadily across warm air. Another sign stood planted in soft sand near the exit. "Welcome to paradise." I exhaled slowly and let the scene settle in. White sand curved outward into a wide crescent beach. Clear water shimmered under sunlight that felt real against my face. Palm trees leaned over the shoreline, their leaves shifting gently in a breeze I could actually feel. Farther out, islands dotted the ocean in every direction. Some were no bigger than rock outcroppings crowned with a single tree. Others rose higher, layered with dense green foliage and steep cliffs edged in white foam. I looked up at the sky again. I can't believe this is all inside this dungeon. The thought came without disbelief now. More like quiet awe. Every level felt sealed and contained, yet expansive enough to hold its own horizon. I reached for the search skill. Golden lines unfolded softly across the landscape, tracing edges and revealing structure beneath beauty. Labels appeared over the nearest objects, clean and steady. Palm tree, stable climbing surface, freshwater stream, drinkable. Coconut cluster, edible. Large shore crab, level 4. I focused farther outward. A massive shape shifted beneath the surface of the water, just beyond the shoreline. A label appeared calmly. Ocean predator, level 6. Movement radius, wide. Avoid open swim. To my left, a heavy splash disturbed the shallows near a rocky shelf. A thick shell broke the surface before sinking again. Spitting tide turtle, level 5. Water-based ranged attack. Above, something cast a slow shadow over the sand. I glanced upward to see a wide-winged bird circling in patient loops. Claw-wing raptor, level 5. High mobility, territorial. I let the search overlay settle back slightly. The floor felt alive, but not chaotic. The movement patterns were broad and predictable. There was space here. I opened my map. The translucent overlay shifted instantly to match the new environment. The larger island I stood on stretched across the center of the display, ringed in shallow water and marked by several smaller land masses beyond. 3 islands pulsed faintly. Each held a glowing X. I zoomed my focus toward the nearest marking. Island marker, teleport node. Activation required. No hostiles detected on surface. Farther south, another island displayed a deeper red tone. Island marker, floor 6 to 7. Transition, elevated difficulty. I stepped forward a few paces, letting sand press lightly beneath my boots. The band of measured step adjusted naturally to the shifting terrain, keeping my movement steady. The teleport node drew my attention first, not because it looked safer, because it felt unknown. The ocean separated the islands in broad channels of shimmering blue. Some gaps looked narrow enough to cross with careful timing along visible sandbars. Others required swimming or creative traversal. I activated search again, this time focusing on the water between islands. Hidden sandbar, shallow crossing, current drift, mild, predictable, submerged rock path, unstable. Golden threads traced possible routes in faint arcs across the water's surface. Search skill increased. Environmental detection range improved. The overlay widened slightly, giving clearer definition to tidal shifts and safe footing beneath the surface. The improvement felt natural, earned through the earlier floors. A large crab scuttled across the sand near my right side, its shell mottled red and blue. It paused, claws clicking lightly, then continued toward the waterline. Giant shore crab. Level 4. Edible. High protein value. I watched it for a moment before turning back toward the horizon. The teleport island sat just far enough away to require effort, but not risk. Its shoreline looked calmer, ringed by low stone formations that rose from the water like natural barriers. A faint shimmer pulsed at its center. I adjusted the cloak of soft current slightly and tightened the leather straps at my shoulders. The humid air settled against my skin, warm and steady. Behind me, the hillside entrance remained quiet. The sign reading, "Welcome to Paradise," stood fixed in the sand. Ahead, islands waited. Search threads lingered faintly across the water, outlining possible paths. Floor 6 felt open, expansive, contained inside the dungeon, yet wide enough to hold its own sky. I took a slow breath, letting the salt air fill my lungs. Teleport island first. Everything else could wait. The sand felt steady beneath my boots as I followed the shallow sandbar. Search had traced across the water. Gentle waves rolled around my ankles, warm and clear, shifting around exposed rock and pale coral. The teleport island waited ahead, quiet and still beneath drifting clouds. A faint vibration traveled through the ground. Search flickered, movement below surface, unclassified. The warning came a second too late. Sand exploded upward at my left side as something burst from beneath it. A massive claw snapped forward, striking my shoulder hard enough to turn me half sideways. Giant burrow crab, level 5, subsurface ambush predator. Stealth rating, moderate. I regained my footing quickly, leather armor absorbing most of the impact. The crab rose fully from the sand now, shell wide as a barrel, legs digging into the beach with rapid precision, its eyes fixed forward, tracking. It had been beneath the surface the entire time. Search had missed it. A quiet notification surfaced. Ambush mechanics detected. New skill unlocked. Detect, novice. Passive awareness increased for concealed threats. The air felt clearer instantly. Subtle distortions beneath the sand shimmered faintly at the edges of my vision. I could sense where the ground held more than simple sediment. The crab lunged again. I pulled the hood of quiet shadows over my head. The world shifted. Sound dulled. My outline dissolved. A silver timer appeared softly in the corner of my vision. The crab's claws snapped through empty air where I had been standing. I moved to its right flank, steps light and deliberate. The band of measured step absorbed the shifting sand beneath my weight, leaving no deep impression. Backstab activated. The dagger slid cleanly between plates at the joint, where shell met softer underside. A muted chime followed as the blade withdrew. The crab pivoted sharply, trying to locate what it could not see. I adjusted position again. Another precise strike. The shell cracked faintly at its edge, pressure weakening. Stealth skill increased. Detect skill increased. The crab snapped wildly toward a ripple in the water, misjudging my location. I stepped behind it once more and drove the dagger into the same weakened seam. The movement slowed. The massive body collapsed into the sand with a heavy thud that sent a low tremor across the shoreline. The hood timer faded as I lowered it. The crab dissolved into faint particles of light, leaving behind a substantial form resting where it had fallen. Giant shore crab. Condition: fresh. Classification: high-quality protein. Preparation note: best steamed or fire-roasted. Buff potential: minor stamina recovery. I crouched and examined it briefly. The shell retained a deep red sheen even after defeat. The claws were thick and clean, meat visible through small fractures along the edge. I stored it in the satchel. The weight distributed itself instantly without strain. Experience gained. Level approaching 5. I remained still for a moment, allowing detect to settle into place. Subsurface disturbances became easier to sense now. Small ripples beneath the sand stood out in faint outlines. The shoreline no longer felt neutral. It felt layered. I scanned the water again. Giant fish moved farther offshore, circling in wide arcs beyond safe depth. A tide turtle surfaced briefly near a cluster of rock before submerging again. The teleport island remained quiet. No hostiles detected on surface. Search extended its range slightly across the shallows. Sandbars glowed faintly beneath the water's surface, forming a path of steady footing. I adjusted my grip on the dagger and resumed walking. This time, detect stayed active at the edge of my awareness. The sand shifted once more beneath my right foot, but I felt it early enough to step aside. A second burrow crab broke the surface several feet away, claws snapping through empty space before it fully emerged. Giant burrow crab. Level 4. I did not engage. The creature's attention shifted toward the waterline, losing interest as I moved farther along the sandbar. Detect pulsed faintly to confirm safe distance. The teleport island grew larger with each step. White sand transitioned to smooth stone along its outer rim. A low ring of natural rock formed a protective crescent around the shore, creating a calmer inlet between the island and open sea. Waves softened as I crossed the final stretch of shallow water. The air shifted slightly cooler near the stone boundary. Palm trees grew thicker here, their leaves casting long patterns across the sand. I stepped fully onto the teleport island. The ground felt stable beneath my boots. Search expanded across the island's interior, revealing minimal threat presence. A faint glow pulsed at the center, steady and contained. Behind me, the larger starting island stretched wide beneath the tropical sky. From here, it looked almost peaceful, its dangers hidden beneath surface layers of sand and water. I adjusted the cloak lightly at my shoulders and took a slow breath. Crab secured. Detect unlocked. Teleport island reached. The dungeon had shifted again. This time, it smelled like salt and sun. The larger island offered sand, palms, and steady ground, yet no glow marked it as special. I let search sweep the clearing once more, and the result came back consistent and calm. There was no teleport node here. The smaller island offshore still carried the X on my map, and this time I felt certain that was the reason I had come. I walked the perimeter slowly, letting Detect skim beneath the sand and roots for movement. Near a cluster of leaning palms, half pulled above the tide line, something curved against the rock. A small wooden boat rested there, angled carefully into the sand as if placed rather than abandoned. 2 paddles lay across the middle seat, dry and balanced. Search confirmed it was usable and stable, with no ownership tied to it. I ran a hand along the hull and felt the smooth grain beneath my palm. The wood was solid, lightly salted by the air, yet well maintained. The smaller island stretched ahead across calm water, simple in shape but deliberate in placement. I can't believe this is all inside the dungeon, I said quietly, looking out over the open sea. An ocean between islands, tropical air against my skin, all hidden somewhere beneath roots and stone far above. The scale of it settled comfortably instead of overwhelming me. I pushed the boat forward and it slid easily into the shallows, rocking gently as it met open water. I stepped in and steadied myself, dipping the paddle cleanly into the sea. The first stroke carried me away from the sandbar and into deeper blue. The water shifted gradually from pale turquoise to a richer shade as I moved farther out. Large shadows drifted beneath the surface at a distance, unhurried and uninterested in my path. Detect shimmered faintly at the edge of my awareness, confirming no immediate threat. Halfway across, I paused and let the boat drift. The smaller island now appeared more defined, its stone edge forming a clean ring around a central clearing. Search confirmed again that a teleport node waited there, inactive but reachable. Curiosity nudged me further. I reached into the satchel and drew out the hood of quiet shadows, letting the fabric settle over my head. The world softened at once, edges dulling gently as the silver timer appeared in my vision. The water around me shifted in tone as something else changed. I looked down and watched the boat beneath me begin to fade. The wood shimmered first, then dissolved into a quiet distortion, and the paddles followed until only faint ripples marked my position. Invisibility extended seamlessly to the vessel and everything I held. "That's useful," I murmured, resuming a steady rhythm with the paddles. From a distance, the surface would look untouched. The wake narrowed and blended naturally into the current as I moved forward without visible form. A massive fish breached several yards away and slipped back beneath the water without altering its course. Farther to the left, a tide turtle surfaced briefly, shell glistening before it disappeared below again. The invisibility held without strain, and the timer ticked down in calm intervals. The smaller island now filled most of my view. As the shore approached, I let the hood fall back and the world returned to normal clarity. The boat shimmered back into existence beneath me, solid and visible once more as the bow touched sand with a quiet scrape. I stepped into the shallows and pulled it securely above the tide line. The air felt slightly cooler here, less expansive than the larger island behind me. Palms stood closer together, their leaves forming a tighter canopy over the interior. The clearing at the center remained visible through them, open and intentional. The X on my map aligned perfectly with the structure in the distance. I adjusted the strap of my satchel and took a slow breath. The larger island lay peaceful across the water, its dangers hidden beneath sand and reef. Ahead of me, the smaller island waited with quiet purpose. I began walking toward the center clearing. The stone beneath my boots held steady warmth as I stood within the teleportation ruins on the tiny island. The carved spirals glowed faintly underfoot, their lines converging toward the center with quiet precision. 4 pillars circled the platform, worn but intact, their surfaces marked by careful geometric etching. My map flickered gently at the edge of my vision. New structure discovered. Teleportation ruins. Destination unlocked. Paradise Island. Main shore. I turned slowly and looked back across the water toward the larger island. The boat rested on the sand where I had pulled it ashore, the shoreline curving in pale arcs beneath the palms. For a moment, I considered returning the long way. Then another notification appeared. Activated nodes are shared between floors. The map shifted again, expanding upward through layers of the dungeon I already knew. A new icon pulsed above the tropical zone. Floor 1, safe zone. Tree ruins activated. I exhaled slowly. So the safe floor had its own ruins, hidden somewhere near the giant tree. I had walked that valley more than once without realizing I had stepped past a gateway. Available destinations: Paradise Island, main shore, floor 1, safe zone, tree ruins. The decision felt obvious. I selected the safe zone and stood still as the spirals beneath me brightened. Gold light flowed inward in slow currents, gathering at the center of the platform as the pillars released a low, even vibration. The air tightened gently around me, folding without pressure. There was no flash. The scent of salt faded, replaced by cool grass and fresh water. When the light receded, I stood beneath the vast canopy of the giant tree. Filtered light spilled through silver-green leaves high above. The valley stretched wide and familiar, grasses bending in slow arcs, while the stream murmured through smooth stone. A short distance past the goods and services tent, half hidden among low grass and pale rock, stood another circular platform carved from the same white stone. Teleportation ruins. They had been here the entire time. I walked across the grass at an unhurried pace, letting the steady rhythm of the safe zone settle through me. The tropical heat was gone now, replaced by the grounded calm of this floor. It felt different here, anchored, and there, exactly where I had left it, stood the cottage. Timber walls steady, chimney quiet, door closed. Relief moved through me in a slow wave. I stepped onto the porch and removed my boots, setting them beside the door. When I stepped inside, the cedar scent greeted me immediately, familiar and warm. The hearth resting in low embers as it had been when I left. I set the satchel on the table and removed the crab carefully. The shell was intact, preserved within the satchel's space, its weight solid in my hands. Appraisal activated. Tropical burrow crab, high-quality meat, ideal for steaming. That would be perfect. I placed a pot over the hearth and filled it with water, watching as the heat adjusted itself evenly beneath the iron base. A small bundle of herbs from the shelf joined the water, and steam began to rise in slow spirals toward the ceiling. The crab settled into the pot, lid placed gently over the top. I leaned back against the counter and listened to the soft build of heat. The scent shifted gradually from ocean brine to something sweeter and richer, filling the small space with steady warmth. Paradise Island, deep below the tree. I can't believe this is all inside one dungeon, I said quietly. Each layer held its own ecosystem. Moss corridors and pixies above, tropical islands and saltwater creatures below. Safe valleys woven between them like resting spaces in a long descent. The lid gave a soft tap as steam built. I lifted it carefully, letting the warmth roll upward before setting the crab onto a wooden plate. The shell had deepened in color, and the meat inside looked firm and clean. I carried the plate to the small table near the hearth and sat down. The first bite was warm and lightly sweet, balanced by the herbs and steady heat. Strength returned slowly, spreading from my shoulders down through my arms in a measured wave. I ate at an easy pace, letting the quiet of the cottage close in around me. The dungeon felt large and layered, yet here in this space, it felt contained and steady. I set the last piece of crab onto the plate and wiped my hands slowly with a clean cloth from the shelf. The warmth from the meal lingered in my chest, steady and grounded, spreading through me in a calm and even way. It wasn't heavy, just satisfying in a way that made the entire day feel complete. The cottage held its shape around me in quiet balance. The hearth gave off a low, steady glow, embers shifting gently beneath the grate, while the iron pot cooled beside it. Steam still lingered faintly in the air, carrying traces of herbs and salt. Paradise Island stayed with me as a clear image, white sand beneath an open cavern ceiling, tropical water stretching towards smaller islands, birds circling wide above palm trees that had no business growing inside a dungeon. I leaned back in the chair and let the memories settle into something less sharp and more reflective. I had walked down a staircase marked the Tropics, and stepped into an ecosystem layered far below the tree. Then, only moments later, I had stood on carved stone and returned here without retracing a single step. The system had remained quiet all evening. No interruptions, no excess commentary, just infrastructure functioning as it was designed. That steadiness made the dungeon feel less chaotic and more deliberate. I rested my forearms on the table and looked toward the window. The safe zone valley glowed softly beyond the glass, filtered light catching the tops of the grass while the stream traced its quiet path through stone. The giant tree stood beyond it all, massive and unmoving. Tomorrow I would go back. The smaller island had only revealed the teleportation ruins, and the map still held markings farther out across the water. One of them carried the label Floor 6 to 7, and I hadn't approached it yet. There was no need to rush. I stood and carried the plate and pot to the basin, rinsing them slowly with warm water. The satchel rested on the table nearby, strap folded neatly against the wood, holding coins, the hood, the map, and everything else gathered along the way. The dungeon felt large, but it did not feel overwhelming. Each layer revealed itself when I stepped into it, and each safe place remained steady when I returned. That rhythm mattered more than speed. I moved toward the back wall and thought bath. The wooden door formed quietly in the stone, simple and familiar. I stepped through and into the small bathing room, where steam drifted upward from a filled tub. The water sat clear and still, faint lavender and mint rising in gentle waves. I removed the leather armor carefully and set it across the wooden rack, placing the gloves and pendant beside it within easy reach. Warm air met my skin as I stepped into the water. Heat moved through me gradually, easing the subtle tension left behind by paddling across open water and moving carefully through unfamiliar terrain. My shoulders lowered as the warmth settled deeper, steady and controlled rather than sudden. I lowered myself fully into the tub and rested my head against the smooth stone edge. The water reached my shoulders and held there, supporting me without shifting. Through the wall, the faint sound of the hearth carried softly. Outside, the valley remained in its steady state, the stream moving in even rhythm beneath the tree. I closed my eyes and let the day replay in order. The carved stairs beneath braided roots, the sign that read the Tropics, the first sight of open water beneath a cavern ceiling, the crab rising suddenly from the sand, the boat cutting clean lines across the surface while the hood's timer counted down in quiet silver numbers. I hadn't expected invisibility to extend to the vessel itself. The system had adapted seamlessly, treating what I controlled as an extension of me. That detail lingered in my thoughts more than I expected. The teleportation ruins had done the same. Infrastructure layered within infrastructure, hidden in plain sight until activated. I can't believe this is all inside this dungeon, I murmured softly. Islands, ocean currents, birds, safe valleys, and lower floors stacked beneath one another with deliberate order. None of it felt random. The water shifted gently as I moved one arm through it. Steam rose in slow arcs toward the ceiling, while the heat continued to work through my shoulders and down my back. Tomorrow would bring more exploration. Paradise Island still held unanswered questions, and the deeper floor marker waited beyond it. For now, the warmth of the bath carried the edges of the day away in steady increments. I let my breathing slow to match the rhythm of the room. The dungeon could continue unfolding when morning returned.